Hey guys, happy Thursday. So I was just catching up on work and I was having a conversation with a friend and I was discussing law of attraction and like how one thing can lead to another, can lead to another, can lead to another. And I actually have a perfect example that I just witnessed because when you get into the habit of controlling and affecting your state of being, it can really change your entire life. And I've been telling people this for years. And I learned this from just watching The Secret and all of that other stuff. But over time, I've learned to implement it and to utilize it properly. And I just had a client last week tell me because I gave them the same advice and the client came back and was like, no, like, like I know all this, like I saw The Secret and I've been studying with this person and I did this and I did that and etc. So I know all about that, but my life is so crap. And my it always comes back to, well, your life is so crap because you're not properly utilizing or implementing the information and the lessons that you learned. You're not utilizing it properly. In other words, if you just learned that walking in mud makes you dirty and you keep complaining that you have dirty clothes, but you keep going out in circumstances where it's muddy and you keep fixating on that, then you're never going to be clean. And so there's no point in complaining about being muddy because you keep aligning yourself with those situations. So here's an example of what just happened, which I'll break it down for you because that way you can understand how law of attraction actually works and how manifestation really does work in your life and compared to what you think based off of what you see on TV or how you understand it. So I have a delivery guy who's been doing a lot of our deliveries, right? So last week he kind of went into a weird like spin where I guess I want to say that he used to work for a delivery service and he wasn't happy because they were, Instacart, they were taking a lot of money. They were charging way too many fees. He was only pocketing so much. And because of COVID and all this other stuff, it's just taken a lot more time to get those deliveries done. And it's just taking a lot of money, etc. Not only that, but people are needy. I mean, I've worked in the customer service industry, so I know that people are needy and they're bitchy and they're moody and they aren't always appreciative. So I can completely understand that you're not always going to deal with people who are pleasant when you're doing that kind of work with delivery service. So he decided to go ahead and leave the delivery service, and he decided to just go like solo and just do it contract based, where he's basically like picking up on people and people are ordering directly through him, and he goes and does the delivery runs and etc. So he gets to pocket more money and he doesn't have to pay all these fees. Well, a week ago, he was on his way to make a delivery, and on his way to do the delivery, his tire blew. So that was first thing. And so his tire blew while he was on the road. He had to deal with the expenses and the cost of having to get a new tire, having to get a new wheel, etc. So that's already a big thing. So he had to move his delivery to the next day. Next day, he goes to a Lowe's and he does a pickup of some products at the Lowe's store. And while he's checking out, there's a run-in with the sales clerk, and an employee of Lowe's, and his arm is grabbed. And immediately, of course, I don't know what the circumstances were, situation, because I wasn't there, but essentially his arm was grabbed, and this led to him filing assault charges on the clerk at the store just because you don't touch anybody, which I completely understand. Like at this day and age, when you're out and about, don't touch nobody. Don't be touching people unless you have their permission to touch them, and you just shouldn't because you don't know what they may be having, if they have the illness or not, which is the sickness or not, COVID. So he got, that all happened at the Lowe's. He filed charges, etc. That went on, and then he had some health issues, so they had to call an ambulance to make sure he was okay, blood pressure, all that other stuff, make sure his vitals were all right. So then that's the second situation that happened. And then fast forward a week later, he's making another delivery run and there is an accident. And not only is there an accident, but then he also ends up breaking his arm, the same arm that was grabbed at the Lowe's, and then be happy to be hospitalized. So that already there's more damage to the vehicle, more physical body damage, and then on top of that, this is probably going to cost him a lot more money. So he's probably going to lose money on the delivery work that he's doing. So not only is he like not making enough, now he's actually having to pay money back to the delivery situation. So all of these things happen like sequentially in a specific order. And people are saying like, so he's probably thinking, or someone who's gone through this is probably thinking like, why is God like punishing me, or why is this happening to me, or why does this keep happening to me, or what's going on here, or whatever. And I noticed the pattern immediately as soon as I started to hear about it. I was like, there's some energy work, there's some energy patterns showing up here, and he looks like he's stuck in a negative energy cycle, which is what I tell people. When you're stuck in a negative energy cycle, it's really hard to break out of that, because it's almost like things keep spiraling in their own way to support each other, so you keep getting more and more and more of the same. And so now it's like all these things kind of lining up. But if you look at the pattern, there's a lot of things that connect there. So what I'm going to tell you is that this all started not with the delivery, the last delivery. This didn't start with the incident at the Lowe's. This didn't even start with the blowout of the tire. This started with feeling like you weren't appreciated, feeling like you were serving people, or you were doing all these things for people, work for people, they weren't appreciating you, having to deal with needy people, not making enough money, feeling taken advantage of, etc. So it sounds to me like there was an initial thought and an emotion, a supporting emotion, a lot of it around the desire to leave Instacart and the desire to do this, on his own. And so that there was the initial seed that was planted, because that was the vibration, that was the state of being that was being supported. And so when that initial state of being was supported, it was probably supported for a while. It probably didn't just all of a sudden show up one day. He'd probably been feeling this way for several days, if not weeks, of doing this work during COVID. And so that built up, the energy built up. Once that situation ended with the Instacart, and then he began to do it on his own, I'm sure that still resided within him, because he was having to coordinate around different situations, different people's schedules, etc. It wasn't like the natural automated system that Instacart uses. You have to do a lot more coordination, because Instacart does make it really easy for the person who's buying stuff to buy, but there was a lot more coordination. So there was still probably some residual energy there. And then once the tire blew up, or there was a tire blowout, that was the trigger. Because when you have a state of being where it's based around all these thoughts and feelings, and then you're supporting that for a while, and then there's one event or one incident that occurs, it can act as a trigger that sets everything else in motion. And so that initial tire blowout was the first trigger. Once that happened, it set everything else into motion. So he immediately began to experience a series of other events that were lining up with that initial state of being that was started back before he had left Instacart. So then the tire blew up happened, a lot of additional emotion, frustration, anger, having to deal with additional costs because of a new tire, having to deal with, the inconvenience, having to deal with being inconvenienced because of his schedule, and having to work around that, led to the next incident the next day, which was at the Lowe's, which dealt with, being inconvenienced with this clerk, having that fight or the argument or whatever that was, and then having to be grabbed physically, et cetera, which then led, and then having to have that, like, the ambulance come out, check your vitals and all that stuff to make sure it was okay. That led to the next incident, which was this entire big event around a wreck with a hospitalization and losing money on the business of delivery service. So all of those things are linked up, or are tied in together. And I try to explain this to people because they don't always understand. When you tell them, like, watch The Secret, you'll understand some things. It's not just watching that film, it's also understanding the concepts and how this works in real world situations. And I've seen this over and over again with other people. When I used to work at Starbucks, I had an employee where she'd got into a relationship. She didn't have great self-esteem or confidence. She settled on this person who was sketchy and let this person into her home. They began to build a relationship, but she kept feeling like she was never going to get ahead. There was always bills, there was always expenses, there was always all this other stuff. She was never going to get ahead. And so then that relationship ended badly, and that person actually stole or stole all her stuff. And then she went through this whole spiral effect. That was the trigger. The trigger was the breakup. Once the breakup happened, it triggered everything else into motion. After that breakup, it led to her being robbed, or all that, being ransacked. And then within a few days of being ransacked, her apartment complex caught on fire and her apartment burned down. And so then after that, everybody, got together, tried to support her, give her money, help her to get a new apartment, etc., which she did. She went through the whole process again, built herself back up, and then she got into a new relationship. And in that new relationship, the same thing happened where she was dating somebody, they started to take advantage of her. Again, feeling taken advantage of, not feeling like you're good enough, feeling like the universe is just is out to get you. And then and this was a completely different person, mind you. So the second person she was dating, that was a completely different person, but that person did the same thing that the first one did. They stole from her. And then on top of that, a few days later, that apartment complex caught on fire. Completely different complex, completely different unit from hers, caught on fire, and then her apartment burned down. And she had to go through the whole process again. And of course, and when you're dealing with all of that and you're in the moment, I'm not going to be like, hey, this is your fault. You created this. No, because that's awful. You're going through something painful, and it's not fun to have to go through something painful, because it is. It's not easy or fun to go through struggle or through trauma or through pain. But we are ultimately responsible for the energy we create, and we are ultimately responsible for the energy we sustain, and which means your state of being matters, people. So whatever you think every day, whatever you feel every day, whatever energy you're supporting every single day, you are creating an entire life based around that. And if you have a trigger, it may not take a lot. It may take one simple thing happening. It spins everything else into motion. And then you start to wonder, like, why am I being punished? Why is the universe doing this to me? Why am I being affected this way? It doesn't have anything to do with that. It has to do with your energy and your state of being. Once you can take responsibility for your state of being, for who you are, for what you support or sustain, that can change and transform everything. That doesn't mean you will never have problems again. That doesn't mean you won't ever deal with any kind of crisis, but there will be a lot less of it in your life, and things will run more smoothly, and you'll be in the flow that feels more stable for you, and life becomes much more enjoyable. I guarantee it, because I've been through this myself, and I've had to learn to do this myself. But this is how it works. So when people talk about just being positive or having a positive mindset or having a positive perspective, it's not just about being positive, people. It's about a state of being that must be sustained consistently for a period of time, so that there's a shift around what you've been doing in your life and how life has been for you and what you've desired versus what you want, what you truly want to align with, and what you're going to do to support that energy, that vibration. So it takes work, it takes real effort, and this is what I help people with the energy coaching. But this is manifestation. This is law of attraction. This is how it actually works. Not think positive and you get positive things, think negative and you get negative things. No, because you can be a moody person and have an incredible life. I can be a very moody person and I have an incredible life. My life is not bad. So that's how it works, guys. Okay. I just wanted to share this experience with you, because I think it will help a lot of you who are going through similar experiences or who have had similar encounters. It will help you kind of get through some of this understanding, so that you stop thinking it's just about thinking positive, because it's not enough to get you anywhere. Okay. All right, guys. I love you all, and I will talk to you next time.